This analysis continues the second leg of our two-part examination of Elizabethan tragic architecture, building upon the Senecan foundations and Act 1 exposition established in Part 1. Act 2 develops the story through new problems and side stories, or subplots. It is usually the longest act, making up about 35 to 45% of the play. It introduces all remaining characters and builds tension. In Shakespeare's tragedies, Act 3 usually contains the turning point, the moment of greatest emotional intensity. This is when the main character acts with full energy, but also crosses a line they cannot return from. Some examples. In Romeo and Juliet, Act 3 includes the deaths of Mercutio and Tybalt. Romeo is then banished, leading to the tragic ending. In Macbeth, Act 3 shows Macbeth killing his friend Banquo. He moves from one murder to ongoing violence and paranoia. In Hamlet, Act 3 includes Hamlet killing Polonius by mistake. This forces Hamlet into direct action and starts Layert's plan for revenge. By placing this emotional explosion in Act 3, the writer ensures that Acts 4 and 5 show only the consequences of these irreversible choices. To ensure you receive notifications of our forthcoming examinations of dramatic structure and literary tradition, we encourage you to activate the bell icon. Act 4 often feels calmer, even though disaster is coming. A special feature of this act is that the main hero sometimes disappears from the stage. In Hamlet, the prince is absent for much of Act 4 because he has been sent to England to be killed. This absence lets the audience see what is happening around him. We watch Ophelia go mad and die, and we see Layert's return seeking revenge. These events help create the final tragedy. Act 4 also develops subplots that create doubt before the ending. In the Spanish tragedy, Act 4 shows Hieronymo's wife, Isabella, destroying the garden trellis where her son was killed, then taking her own life. This scene mirrors the hero's grief and shows a character choosing the past over the future. In Act 5, the hero returns, often changed. After the emotional struggles of the first 3 acts, the hero now shows calm acceptance, sometimes called stoic resignation. This means accepting fate without fighting it. When Hamlet returns in Act 5, he visits a graveyard. Holding the skull of Yorick, his childhood jester, he faces the reality that all people die. This moment reduces human pride and helps Hamlet accept life's limits. He says, "There is a special providence in the fall of a sparrow," meaning he now believes a higher power guides events. He stops trying to control everything. The play then moves quickly to the catastrophe, the final series of deaths that resolves the plot. Act 5 is usually short, with only a few scenes, because it focuses only on the results of earlier actions. Some scenes focus on action, fighting, murder, or public events. Others focus on thought, through soliloquies or long speeches. These quiet moments let characters and the audience reflect on what has happened. Shakespeare often mixed these two types within one act. For example, in Hamlet Act 4, Scene 5, the first part shows Ophelia's madness, a sad, fragile moment. The second part shows Laertes angrily confronting King Claudius, a moment of strong action. This contrast keeps the audience emotionally engaged. Comic relief, funny moments in serious plays, helps the audience relax before the next intense scene. Laughter gives the audience an emotional break, so the next serious moment feels stronger. Examples are the porter in Macbeth, the gravediggers in Hamlet, or the fool in King Lear. After King Duncan's murder, a drunk servant jokes and pretends to be the gatekeeper of hell. This short comedy prepares the audience for the horror of seeing the king's body. In Hamlet, the gravediggers tell jokes and riddles about death while digging Ophelia's grave. Their humor makes death feel more human and gives relief before Hamlet's final tragedy. In King Lear, the fool makes fun of King Lear's mistakes. His jokes give relief from the king's madness and the play's violence. but his words also contain deep wisdom. This use of comedy prevents the audience from becoming too emotionally tired. It makes the serious moments more powerful. For those wishing to contemplate further the interplay of structure and emotion in classical drama, we invite you to explore our additional analyses available on this channel. So, Elizabethan theater actually used what's called a presentational style. That means actors would speak directly to the audience and, openly acknowledge that they were performing. Techniques like asides, those private comments to the audience, and eavesdropping scenes, well, they created dramatic irony, which is when the audience knows more than the characters on stage. This really increased suspense. The theaters themselves had pretty simple stages that kind of pushed out into the audience, called thrust stages, and there was no painted scenery. So actors had to describe places and moods using just their words. They moved back and forth between talking to other characters and speaking straight to the audience. Because of this need for clear, constant speech, things like rhetorical repetition and the 5-act structure were super useful. They helped both actors and audiences keep track of the story. Elizabethan tragedy was actually carefully built around cause and effect. It reflected this belief that order in the mind, family, government, and even nature were all connected. So when one area broke down, like, say, when a king was murdered in Macbeth or Hamlet, disorder spread everywhere. Society broke apart and even supernatural events would appear. The 5-act structure made sure that order got restored at the end, not always happily, but definitely clearly. This ending wasn't just a story requirement, it actually gave the audience a hopeful feeling that chaos could be resolved. The hero's journey, from personal conflict in Act 1 to calm acceptance in Act 5, gave the audience an emotional lesson. Through catharsis, or the release of strong emotions, the play taught people how to feel the right emotions at the right times. In the end, the 5-act structure gave writers a really strong framework. It let them explore deep human feelings and wisdom. Through skillful use of language, pacing, and comedy, Shakespeare and his fellow writers created plays that were easy to perform, and that, honestly, still help us understand the challenges of living in an uncertain world.